Well, playing in the quintet is a marvelous, experience, as is playing in the orchestra. It's impossible to decide which one you like more, but they are different. In the quintet, I do feel like the parts individually tend to be more challenging. There tends to be more demanding range, and technical demands are higher. And so I like that challenge. It's not that orchestra parts are all easy. That's certainly not the case. There are numerous parts that are very, very difficult. But in the quintet, you just tend to have a higher level of difficulty, just generally speaking. There's more responsibility placed on an individual. I mean, one way you could sort of look at it is in a quintet, you have 20% of the responsibility. In an orchestra, you rarely have 20% of the responsibility. Sometimes, as a principal horn, I may have some solos from time to time, but those are less frequent. And so in the quintet, you're just kind of always on, and it's just a delightful challenge, and it's a great process and a wonderful product.
Well, the easiest answer is numbers, obviously, but the more intricate answer is that certainly we are still making music no matter what the size is, but the communication style, the communication skills are quite a bit different. The history of chamber music is really interesting because it came from a very intimate style of music where most of those chambers were inside someone's home. Maybe it was an elaborate home, but inside a home where the homeowner would have invited composers and musicians to come in and to perform for his friends or himself, and so therefore provided a very intimate setting. And that's a challenge to play in that kind of a small group where you have to rely on one another. In a larger group, we do rely on one another, but we also rely on the conductor who is leading us, guiding us, explaining to us exactly the style of music and how we need to approach that. And with chamber music, we kind of do a lot of those things ourselves. We decide when to begin, when to stop a phrase, how to shape a phrase, how to hand off the melody to someone else. It's a different set of skills. For me, it's really an exciting time. I've been playing with the brass quintet since the beginning of my time with the Dayton Phil, which has been several years, and part of my job that I really like, not more than playing in the orchestra, but I really appreciate the fact playing with four other guys in a brass quintet, communicating the music and style and having personal input in how that music goes.
The typical trombone that everyone thinks of, the most commonly used one from the beginning of the instrument, is more technically called the tenor trombone. And what you then see most often is that instrument. The bass trombone is a specialty version of that. The modern instrument is really like the tenor trombone, but larger. The bore size, which is the internal diameter of the tubing, is wider. The bell is larger, the mouthpiece is bigger, and to make it fully chromatic, meaning able to play all the notes in the low register, it usually has a second valve, which allows you to get all of the notes down there. Both valves are operated with the left hand. The slide is operated, as people are used to, with the right hand. So there's a little bit of coordination involved. Modern tenor trombones, professional models in classical settings, usually have one valve. Bass trombones have two. So a little bit of right and left hand coordination that you have to manage. But the bass trombone has a different role as well. It's a different instrument, but it has a different role in the ensemble. It plays more of the bass notes, the lowest notes of the harmonies, and whereas the tenor trombone might play middle notes of the chords, or if they're lucky, on occasion even play melodies. So in the brass quintet, that's one nice thing about playing the tenor trombone, is I do have the chance to play things that are more melodic and less like the bass line that the bass trombone might often play in conjunction with a tuba.
Yeah, we're doing all right. We're doing all right. There are some days that are great and some days that are a real challenge. I've got 4 young children, and so one thing I like about the COVID era is there's not this big rush to get out the door and get them to school in the morning and to make sure you put your pants on and all things like that. It's just a nice, relaxed start to the day, and so that's been a real great thing. One thing that's been a challenge is just finding ways to keep everyone entertained and not from getting too crazy and picking on each other and that sort of a thing. So we've had to get kind of creative with some of the things we do for activity for the kids. And then I think I've sort of have developed a twisted sense of fun. I've taken on some projects around the house that have been, some of them have been quick and easy, and then some of them have been just weeks long. I just recently completed a French drain project where I dug in the ground for a long time, and then I wheelbarrowed with my dad and my brother about 3 tons of rock, and I think we removed about 5 tons of grass, and not grass, but we removed about 5 tons of dirt. So there's a lot of manual labor, and I'm still only half happy I did it. My body hurts, but I'm super thrilled with the results.
Well, thank you for asking. We're actually all doing quite well. I have a wife and 2 young children. Schooling was interesting, one of the more challenging parts for our family. I have, like I said, young children. One of them is just young enough that she hasn't been taught some of the computer skills they made her use. So it was a little bit of a challenge to balance family responsibilities and musical responsibilities. Playing by myself was a different challenge. I'm used to making music with other people, but spent a lot of time playing music by myself. And that was, I think, one of the biggest differences between normal life and COVID life is just being surrounded constantly by the same set of people and the same set of walls. Had a lot of wonderful time together with family, but I missed my colleagues. I missed making music with other people. I did some things like many other musicians did, using multi-track technology to record some things by myself with multiple parts, but it's still not the same as making music with other people live.
I have 2 that I like the most, I think. The one is it's more because of more of a personal connection. We're playing an arrangement by a friend and colleague of mine. His name is Brian Berkeley, and he's a very talented trumpet player and a very talented arranger. And we came to Brian and we said, hey, we've got this piece, but the arrangement that we have is no good. Do you think you could do something about this? And he did, and he made this delightful arrangement. And so that's the Gershwin, it's called the 3 piano preludes, and we're playing the first movement, and it's his arrangement. It's just awesome. And the other piece I like is by Andre LaFosse, and it's such a great, unique piece of music. He has a jazz background, LaFosse did, and in his family there's LaFosse Jr., LaFosse Sr., they have this jazz background and trombone playing background. But the piece is very much in a traditional brass quintet style with just these faint echoes or, ingredients of jazz in them. They're very barely recognizable in the harmony. So it's a very original feeling composition. There's nothing else in our brass repertoire that's like this piece. We're playing the 4th movement, which is just super energetic and light and effervescent, and it's just a joy to play this music. The whole piece, really, all 4 movements, but today we just did the 4th movement.
Well, my favorite is the loudest piece that we played. And that's kind of humorous because as I was thinking about the name of our program was basically Meet the Brass, or a brass demonstration, or that sort of thing. But also the question came to my mind is that why do brass players play so loudly? And I thought about that, and I said because we can. And it's kind of an enjoyable thing to kind of just fill the room with brass sound. So the 2 pieces that kind of come to mind is the Kevin McKee pieces that we just performed. The first one being Escape, and the second one being Vuelta del Fuego, which is Ride of Fire. And it's just really exciting to be able to push the brass instrument to its well, not breaking point, but pushing it to the point where we can really satisfy the effects of the brass instruments. And I think all of us would. We enjoy the soft phrases and being able to be subtle, but we also enjoy letting the cat out of the bag.
There's a piece that we played as the trombone feature after that instrument was talked about by Andre Lafosse. It's called Suite Impromptu, and we played just the final movement of it, which is simply entitled Mouvement, and it does move. It's a nice quick piece, but in the middle of it, it has a trombone solo, which is a nice chance to take over the melody, and it happens to be relatively high, which, as someone who plays a lot of low notes in the orchestra and almost never the melody in the orchestra, it's nice to be able to play something in the upper register and to play something that is melodic in nature.